All right, so I'm doing the finishing touches in the laundry room. So I want to do some floating shelves. So basically all I've done. So this is my wall between the window and the cabinet door. So just looks like I can fit about 18 to 24 inch shelves. Probably gonna do 2 of them. So just did some looking around, like, Wayfair, Amazon, stuff like that. And for some really cheap, like fake wood ones, you're 30 to 50 bucks, 100 plus bucks if you want solid wood or real wood ones. So I'm not gonna spend that money because I know I can make them easier, and I'm gonna use wood I already have in my backyard. So let's go check that out. So in the backyard, got a lot of junk I still need to haul off, but there's a lot of nice wood here. I mean, it looks like old crappy wood, but looks can be deceiving, right? So I just pulled this piece out. It's actually a 2x6, which actually measures 1.5 by 5.5, right? And it's old and water damaged, which is great. So I could use that. What I would do is pressure wash it, trim it up and stuff like that. So this is my first piece of wood I found that would be a great option, especially if you're going for like a rustic look. You like the patina, you like the knot holes and scratches, right? This would make a nice rustic shelf. Alright, so here are my 2 20-inch long shelves. Again, these are 2x6s, which makes it 5.5 inches deep and 1.5 inches tall. So here's the old wood. It's relatively flat, which is fine, but I like the character. This one's got a little knot hole in it, which is cool. And then the other one actually had an old screw that I had to cut through a little bit, but we got through it. I'll pull that screw out, but I'll probably leave this old one. Give it a little more character. It looks more like reclaimed wood. So as you can see, that wood was actually in much better shape than it looked. So this is what I got after pressure washing. Still wet, so let it sit out here in the sun for a little bit, dry, and then we'll come back and sand them. So after I pressure washed, let them dry, I got the Ryobi palm sander with some 120 grit. Spent about 2 or 3 minutes on each. Slightly rounded over all the edges, made sure there was no snags, right? And then I picked the leading edges I want. So depending on what you like, but I like the holes and the cracks and the big knot right there, right? So that's going to be the front leading edge of my floating cabinet. So, and actually I like the way the wood looks so much. So instead of like priming and painting them, I think I'm just going to stain. Haven't decided what color. When I stain stuff, I like to experiment. So here's today's stain concoction. So like I said, I like to wing it, I like to experiment. So and here I have some espresso, some whitewash, some gun stock, and a couple spoons of vinegar. The vinegar just helps disperse everything and mix the different types of stains together. So, but I'm going for a whitewashed, weathered, grade look. So the bulk of it is the whitewash stain and a little bit of gun stock and a little bit of black espresso. And then this is just steel wool. I like to use steel wool on rough projects like this instead of like a paintbrush or roller or a rag to spread on, because the fine steel wool tends to get into the grain better. So let's go ahead and put the stain on, see what we get. So here's the first coat stained. Just rubbed it in with the steel wool in the grain, with the grain, and wiped it off with a microfiber. So there's what the other one looks like before and after stain. I got a pretty good finish. It's kind of what I was going for. I'm going for an old distressed look. So I got a grayish look because I mixed the whitewash with espresso and stuff. So first coat of stain compared to that, it's about what it's going to look like. So I'll probably do 2 coats of stain and wipe off when I'm done. If I wanted more whitewash, so that whitewash you kind of got to leave on and let dry a little bit if you want the whiter hues. So I might play around with that, but it's a good first coat. Go ahead and do the other piece. As you can see, I have one of the floating shelves already installed. Nice and level. Tight against the wall. And no hardware visible, so hidden hardware. I'm going to show you how I do it. And you might have seen it up here, but so I have some 3/8 threaded rod. You can get this at the hardware store. It's super cheap. I bought a 3-foot section for $2.80 or something like that, which was more than enough. In hindsight, I could have bought a 2-foot section, which would have been like 50 cents cheaper. So yeah, $3 to install these is what I spent on hardware. So all I do is I've already cut 2 rod sections about 6.5, 7 inches. Go 3 inches into the wall, into the stud. So I'll show you how I did that. And then you know, on the back side you drill 2 holes and slide the floating shelf onto the studs. Super strong. This is going to be for like knickknacks and decorations. And I don't want to warp my shelf, but I can hang on. I can hang on this. So I made it way stronger than it needs to be. But it's really easy to make it that strong. So yeah, we're going to get started. So first order of business is finding your studs. You don't want to put shelves like this just into drywall or sheetrock with those little anchors, whether it's those through the wall metal anchors or the plastic screw anchors. Don't do it. You can buy hardware, like there'll be a little metal plate with a screw with a rod, like a hidden rod. You can get them on Amazon. I looked. It was like 15, 20 bucks for a 4-pack, and they're crappily made. And because of the little bracket plate, it would put a screw outside the stud, right? So single threaded rod into the centered in each stud is what I'm doing. So a stud finder, if you don't have one, get one. Most houses in the US are 16 on center, meaning it's from each stud to stud, it's 16 inches from the center of one stud to the next. There's typically always a stud by a door frame or a window, so I actually measured out from there. I knew where to look, and I found my studs about here, 16 inches apart. But use your stud finder, and obviously I already found the ones up there, so I have an idea of already where they are. Alright, so there's my one stud right there. It's actually slightly further over, just a tad. And I like to double and triple check this. So, I guess if you haven't used a stud finder before, here's the basic way it works. So you drag it along the wall, shows you where the stud starts and stops. I like to do it from both edges. So there's my stud on that side. And I'll go ahead and get the other side marked up. Alright, so I have my 2 studs marked with tape. You could use pencil. Since I'm just using tape, it's easier for me. Especially allows you to move it. But, so if I put the tape measure in the center of where I measured that stud to this one, I know I'm pretty darn close because 16 inches from center of that one to that one. And that also confirms that my studs are 16 on center in here. Which I didn't know because I already measured this one, installed it, but I'm just showing you the process I like to be thorough when I do this because I don't want to miss and have damaged holes. Another trick I like to do is before I actually drill it out, the larger hole to put the threaded rod in, I'm just going to take a normal screw, right? And I'm going to put my drill on a low torque setting and screw it in. It'll bind up and I'll know I've hit wood. If it just free spins, I know I missed the stud. And then I just have a small screw hole I can move and hide if I see a large hole. So I also want my shelf about a foot down from the top shelf. So I just drew a little crosshair a foot down and where I think the center of the stud is based on what I measured with the stud finder. And here's the little trick I do with the screw. So I have my drill set on the lowest torque setting. So see how it's quickly binding. I'll turn it up just a tad, send it some of the way further. That means I know I'm hitting a stud. If the screw just goes all the way through and it doesn't get hard to turn, I've missed it. So I know I'm in the stud. Back it out. And then you'll actually see a little bit of wood on the threads of the screw. So that's my trick to make sure I found this. Alright, and on to the drilling. So since this is 3/8 rod, so 0.375 inch diameter, I'm using the next smaller drill bit. So 5/16, which is like 0.325. So it's got to be slightly smaller because you want the threads in the rod to catch in the wood when I tighten it in. So step smaller drill bit. If you try to use the same size, these threads won't grab and it won't be strong. So before I forget to, so also get a coarse thread. So this is 3/8 by 16, so that's 16 threads per inch. That's how that's measured in standard. You can see that it's a coarser. You don't want a fine one for wood like this. The coarse will grab into a wood stud better. And I will go ahead and drill. I have marked my drill bit with tape at 3 inches. So 1/2 inch drywall to 3/4 in most houses. And then I'm going to get a good 2.5 inches into the stud. If it's a 2x4 stud, right? A 2x4 actually measures 3.5 inches across. I don't want to drill all the way through the stud sideways, right? So we'll go ahead and get this installed, or get this drilled. So cut a piece off the 3/8 rod, and then I've marked with tape 3 inches back where I want to stop. So when I thread this in, when I hit the tape, I know not go any further. So that's as far as I drilled my hole. Now, how do you screw this into the wall? Easy way. Just get 2 hex nuts. Again, with the same pitch, so 3/8 diameter by 16. Right? I'm just going to thread them onto the end. You need 2 because obviously one would just free spin. So the second nut jams it in place. Right, so now I can twist the outside nut because the inside one jams it, and I can spin the whole rod into the wall. And then just get the socket. So in my case, these hex nuts are 14 millimeter, and that will allow me to spin the rod into the wall. Show you that process real quick. Make sure it's level. Start threading it in. Yeah, so if you do it by hand, you might not have a good mechanical tightness to jam So an open-ended wrench to hold this one tight as you tighten this one into it will hold it in place. And we'll send it the rest of the way until I hit my tape. And as you can see, as the stud is bottoming out and the hole I drilled, it's going to get harder to turn. Alright, so it got hard to turn and I've reached the tape, so it's done. And I'll just back these nuts up real quick. So just grab one at a time. And there we go. You can double check the depth from the wall. So I have just about 4 inches sticking out. So I know when I drill the hole into my board, I only need to go 4 inches in. Again, this board is a 2x6, so it's 5.5 inches. So I've, on my other piece of blue tape, I measured a foot down and I did a crosshair and pin on the tape where I thought the center of the stud was. Another little trick, instead of just measuring and drilling, I'm going to use a level. Since I already have one of the rods installed, I'm going to set the other rod on the tape and level it to the other rod exactly. Right there. And then I'll just make a little indent, so I know exactly where to drill. Alright, both my studs are in and they are perfectly level. And check it out. So with the 3-inch through the drywall into the stud, these things can't move. I could put all my body weight on these and hang on them. So super strong and cheap, right? Like I said, they make hidden shelf hardware. It's way more expensive. It's really easy to do yourself, save you a lot of money. This whole project's cost me like $2 or $3 out of pocket because I used wood I had, stain I had. All I did was buy this rod. So I'm happy with that. They're level, and now we will mark the next shelf for drilling the holes for the shelf to slide onto. So I've already picked my front end, the more patinaed weather end with the cracks and the knot holes and the old nail and screw holes. So that's going to be my front edge. So since this is my front edge, I want to mark the back edge for drilling. So all I'm going to do is flip it over. I'll use my level on the edge of one. My level with the bubble centered on the top one, slide the shelf over. So that's where the shelf needs to be centered with the one above it. And since I know I'm marking on this side, all I'm going to do is I'm going to look at where the stud is right underneath here and just mark with my pin. See, I can see the stud. So I'm going to come up on the face, mark the center of that stud, and do the same on this side. Alright, so that, and then I'm just obviously going to drill in the center. So, yep, let's go drill those holes. I've marked my bit 4 inches back, so I know the depth to drill in. Since the rod's 3/8, you can use a 3/8 drill bit. That's what I used on the other shelf. It made it really tight. Like, it's still installed, but it was tight. I had to tap it in with a hammer. So I'm actually going to step up to a 1/2 inch drill bit on this one to make the holes slightly bigger than the rod, make it a little easier to install, and we'll see how that does. Again, just keep this centered. there you can see the 2 1/2-inch holes I drilled. Just line them up with your studs. Much easier to install. Almost went all the way on by hand. You can use your hammer. Before I hammer it further in, just check it one more time, make sure it's level. Perfect. Bubbles perfectly centered. Really happy with that. If you have a nice painted shelf and you don't want to damage it, use a cloth and like a piece of wood to hammer it, or use a rubber mallet or a wooden mallet. I have a distressed look, so I'm okay with hitting it with a metal hammer. Gives me a little more patina. And that's it. We are done. Perfectly level. So there you go. Do it yourself homemade shelves for cheap, right? So like I said, I think that rod was $2.80 at the hardware store, and these they're way stronger than they need to be. So I could probably put 50 pounds on these if I wanted to. Not that I would have anything to fit these shelves that's 50 pounds, but there you go. Make your own floating shelves for a fraction of the cost of what they charge for shelves like this online, and they're solid wood. A lot of them you're spending a lot of money for hollow, and they're not even, you know, or they're veneer, they're not even real solid wood. So some close-ups of the finish I went for. Again, you can stain and paint these any color you want. I like this rusted reclaim grade weathered look. I think I achieved that perfectly. So yeah, project is a success. Thanks for watching.